China, a country that was called the factory of the world 20 years ago. A country where millions of people worked in factories, producing machinery, clothing, and electronics for the whole world. But today, in 2025, it is no longer just a factory, it is a laboratory of the future. China is no longer copying, it is creating. He doesn't catch up, but sets the pace. From cheap fakes to proprietary technologies, from imitation to innovation. This is a story of incredible transformation that the world has watched with amazement and dismay. Let's look at how China turned from a country of copies into a country of ideas. In the early 2000s, China was on the verge of an economic miracle. After joining the World Trade Organization in 2001, the country opened its doors to global investment. Foreign corporations, from Apple to Nike, rushed to a place where labor was cheap and production could be deployed at cosmic speed. It was then that China received the Made in China label. Millions of goods, from children's toys to smartphones, were assembled in endless factories in Shenzhen and Guangzhou. But then there was a simple formula behind it. Production, yes. Invention, no. China in the early 2000s was a country of copying. Legal and not-so-legal versions of Western technologies filled the domestic market. Fakes for Nokia, Sony, and even for the iPhone appeared immediately after the original. But behind this process, there was not only a desire to earn money, but something more: training. China studied. He copied not for the sake of copies, but for the sake of understanding how the modern world of technology works. It was a period of accumulation of knowledge, infrastructure, and personnel. Engineering universities were opening in the country. Research centers were being created, and a class of ambitious young specialists was being formed who would transform China into a technological power in 20 years. By the mid-2010s, China had made a turnaround. The government realized that endless copying would not make the country great. And then the Made in China 2025 program appeared, a strategic plan aimed at transforming China from a manufacturing workshop into an innovation center. The government has started investing billions in key areas: robotics, artificial intelligence, semiconductors, biotechnologies, smart cities, and electric vehicles. This moment became a watershed. China was no longer just repeating, it was starting to create. Look at Shenzhen. In the 2000s, it was the capital of cheap gadgets, and in 2025, it will become the world center of technological startups. Ideas that compete with Silicon Valley are born here. Huawei, DJI, BYD, Xiaomi, Oppo, and NIO are no longer copies of Western brands, but independent giants setting trends. Huawei competes with Apple in cameras and AI. BYD displaces Tesla in the electric vehicle segment, and DJI has monopolized the drone market worldwide. The technological China of 2025 is an ecosystem. The government invests in research institutes, universities, and private companies. The authorities don't just monitor the market, they direct it. Government grants, tax incentives, and special innovation zones all create an ideal environment for technological growth. But at the same time, China retains what has always been its strength: scale and discipline. Artificial intelligence occupies a special place. Today, China is one of the world leaders in this field. The Baidu and SenseTime algorithms recognize faces with an accuracy that is astounding. AI is used in healthcare, finance, manufacturing, and even urban governance. China's smart cities are equipped with millions of cameras, sensors, and systems that analyze traffic, energy consumption, and security in real time. This is not just digitalization. It is a new philosophy of managing society through data. But China 2025 is not only about technology, but also about ambition. In the field of space, the country is making a breakthrough that seemed impossible even 15 years ago. The Chinese lunar program has successfully delivered soil samples, and missions to Mars have proven that the country is able to compete with NASA and SpaceX. Moreover, China is building its own space station and actively developing commercial activities such as satellite launches, private rockets, and satellite internet systems competing with Starlink. China has also become a leader in the field of transport. In the early 2000s, Chinese automakers copied Western models. Today, BYD, Geely, and NIO export electric vehicles worldwide. China is the largest manufacturer of batteries, and its power grids have already been adapted to the mass use of electric vehicles. Magnetic cushioned trains, unmanned taxis, speed lines. All this is not futurism, but the reality of Chinese megacities. However, China's path to innovation has not been easy. Intellectual property issues, dependence on foreign chips, sanctions, and trade wars have all become a challenge. But China has not broken down. On the contrary, it was under the pressure of the outside world that he accelerated. After the sanctions against Huawei, the country threw all its efforts into developing its own semiconductor industry. Companies like SMIC are already producing chips that, although inferior in lithography to Western ones, are showing tremendous progress. China in 2025 is a country where innovation has become part of the culture. Young people are creating startups, engineers are developing new materials, and designers are creating technologies that can compete with Western brands. And most amazing thing is that it doesn't look like copying anymore. China has developed its own style. Its technologies are increasingly based on national traditions and cultural peculiarities. This is felt in the design of devices, in architecture, in the philosophy of the approach, a combination of practicality, mass character, and national identity. In the economy, China has done what was considered impossible, turned scale into an advantage. There are more than 1 billion consumers in the country, and every innovation can be tested, adapted, and scaled within a single country. This gives Chinese companies a huge advantage over their Western competitors. They are not afraid to experiment. China has also changed socially. In the early 2000s, it was a country of cheap labor. Today, it is a country of educated engineers, researchers, and programmers. The standard of living has increased, and cities have become modern megacities with high standards of comfort. The internet has penetrated into all spheres, and the digital economy is shaping a new generation of entrepreneurs. And yet, there is strict control behind success. Unlike liberal systems, China manages innovation centrally. The state regulates the internet, restricts the activities of large corporations, and controls financial flows. For some, it is an obstacle. For others, it is a tool of stability. It is thanks to this approach that China has avoided the crises faced by Western markets. So what do we see in 2025? China has stopped being a copy of the world. Now the world is starting to copy China. His approach to manufacturing, scaling, and digitalization is becoming a benchmark. Chinese brands are perceived not as cheap alternatives, but as technological leaders. The journey from counterfeiting to innovation took only 2 decades. But over these 20 years, there are millions of engineers, thousands of companies, billions of investments, and a strategic goal that does not change: become the #1 country in technology. And now, when the world says made in China again, it's not about mass production, but about power. China in the 2000s was a country that studied. China 2025 is a country that teaches others. And perhaps this is the main symbol of the era. The path from copying to creation is the path from imitation to leadership.